There's things that I won't tell you, that I can't tell you. All I can tell you right now is, and I'll look you right in the eye, I'll tell you, whatever goes on in these woods, don't take it for what you can see. Because there's a lot more to what you can't see. Bigfoot, shape-shifted, folks.
It's not just that Sasquatch exists, it's that Sasquatch can do this, and this, and this.
We had the hair tested by a vet. It came back as an unknown hair type. Then I turned to Daryl and I said, listen, it could get really weird now.
It was able to do things that you couldn't even imagine.
What are the chances of us seeing something like that? 1 billion to 1? 2 billion to 1? Why us?
I think if you can base some of this in science, it allows us to have a grasp of what's going on. Coherent matter can work in ways that ordinary matter can't because it's based on quantum principles. So it can easily go into cloaked mode.
And the words repeated, why are you carrying a gun? And the second time it went through my head, I knew they're talking to me.
It's not about the one encounter. It's about the thousands of encounters, exact same type of characteristics that tell the story. You cannot deny it. And that's why you have to acknowledge the paranormal aspect.
What did I just see here? Oh my goodness.
How long you out here for?
Week or so.
Oh, I come out here all the time.
Out here?
Out here.
What for?
Whether you paint what you dream or whether you paint from life, whatever it is, you're the one.
No. There's no data since the fire.
Forest Service must be downsizing, sending you up there alone.
I asked to go alone.
Do you know how many acres we could have reforested if we hadn't spent that money fighting you in court?
Did you ever run into anyone suspicious out here? Somebody just didn't belong?
Besides you. I mean, they choose you. They decide when you can see them. They know what you're thinking, and they decide.
You're not scared of some wild creature getting used to being fed?
The Army needs weapons, right? They always need new kinds of weapons. So let's just say that your old chums at the Forest Service called them and said that there might be these giants.
And they never had a need for any of this.
Well, this is an absolute honor for me. And I so much appreciate that you took some time to connect with me after I reached out to you through first YouTube and then email. Um, my name is Ashlea Stinnett, and I am a Sasquatch researcher and experiencer. And today I will be interviewing Michelle Gibson. And Michelle, you have had such an impact on this world and on humanity in the most positive ways through your actions. And I appreciate so much what you have shared. And I know I'm not alone in this. I know this is felt by many. And so I thank you for what you do and for joining me today in a conversation.
Thank you, Ashley. I really appreciate that introduction. It means a lot. And, all I can really say is it's coming from my heart. And I just felt like when I started getting the bigger picture that it's something that I had to do. I want to do it. I love doing it, but I don't feel like I could live with myself if I had received the information and not done something with it.
I feel that too. I feel that there's a lot of similarities in what you said, and also what my path has taken me on with my connections, very real connections to the Sasquatch people. And it is so important to share. I think that storytelling and the passing of information is one of the greatest gifts that our ancestors gave to us. And it is the biggest gift that we can give to the next generations. And when it is coming from the heart, and when it is coming from truth, and when it is coming from a place of good, because unfortunately, we're not living in a realm where that is 100%. And so when we are able to document the most extraordinary things about this life and present it for people in our contemporary times right now, and then later in the future, it's a calling, and it takes strength and dedication to follow through with that. And it's really beautiful to see that there's more and more of that determination occurring within, I think, humanity with those people who are being called.
I agree with you. And, not only from fellow YouTube creators, but also people that are in my community on YouTube. It just seems like people are hungry for truth.
Yes.
That's been taken from us and denied us for so long that there's, those of us that are out there that are holding the puzzle pieces trying to figure out where they go, and in many ways, it's still a guessing game. And we know they did something, but who, when, where, how. I've got some ideas, and there's a range of ideas, but what I'm seeing is just a beautiful integrated worldwide civilization that was in harmony and unity consciousness. And then that just got destroyed. And sacred geometry is part of it. The earth grid's a big part of it. The living, trees, giant trees, and, the living world is a part of it. And that's our birthright, and it was stolen. And I was excited when you reached out to me because while I'm not a Sasquatch experiencer, personally, I am aware of the reality of Sasquatch just from things I've encountered on my path. So I saw a movie a number of years ago on Gaiam.com called Letters from the Big Man. And it was produced by Christopher Munch. And it was a fictionalized story about a young woman that experienced Sasquatch in the Pacific Northwest. She worked for Forestry Department or something like that. And I followed a little bit about Christopher Munch, and I watched some videos that had been done on YouTube, fir and cedar primarily. is one channel. And then there's, I think, Ontario Sasquatch or something like that. So what I've learned is that Sasquatch is in higher consciousness than we are. And they're already in unity consciousness. And they've been waiting patiently for us to come around to where they are. And for a number of reasons with the consciousness we've been in, which I see as a manipulated state, it's not our natural state. We've been manipulated to become our worst versions of ourselves, the lowest form we could possibly be brought down to by those that came into this earth and destroyed things for their own gain, including the earth grid, the infrastructure for the earth grid, human relationships. They've been socially engineering us. They've been genetically engineering us. They've been distracting us and drugging us. Alcohol.
It takes a lot of effort, right, to keep us down, and yet we've never been fully taken down, which is really beautiful to think about even in these dark times.
Exactly. And with as dark as it is, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
It could be tremendously worse. And I think the reason it's not is because they have to have our permission to do what they've done.
Yeah, there has to be a consent.
And in no way have we consented.
Nope.
So we've been drugged, we've been lied to, we've been distracted, we've been turned against each other, we've been turned against all life. We have no consciousness in our relationship with other beings. Animals are for hunt or food. Bigfoot is for capture and study.
Yeah.
And they have not been successful in that last item because Bigfoot's in higher consciousness. So Sasquatch and Bigfoot are the same in our language.
Yes. Yes, there's those were all incredibly good points. I've definitely looked at I started becoming aware of this realm and kind of like those secrets hidden in plain sight starting in 2010. This also correlated with a move from Arizona actually to the Pacific Northwest in 2010. So I started getting a massive download, not only with my my personal research looking into these things, but all of these avenues that I was looking into came through because of personal experiences. I started really experiencing the multidimensional reality of this realm and paying attention to that once I moved up here. That isn't to say that I haven't I'm pretty sure I've had connections to the Sasquatch and the Star Nations for my entire life and outside of this life because of what I've experienced thus far in this life. But I saw a lot of stuff in Arizona. There's a lot of stuff going on there. There's a lot of stuff going on everywhere. But in 2010, moving up here, I really started paying attention. And that led me into, at 13 years of really diving into these topics and having the experiences that go along with it. We're absolutely not alone. We are humans amongst many other beings that are calling this place home as well. And they're doing it in the physical, and they're doing it in the other ways, and in the other dimensions, and in the other realities. I wonder how many onion layers there are to even just the physical aspect of this realm. And humans are definitely a key to all of this. If we weren't, we wouldn't have this evil looking at us so closely and manipulating us. And this this manipulation, it really does make sense that this natural grid that we had, the artifacts that we have left, and the photographs, and this look into this other world that is so different than what we are experiencing now, and knowing that it wasn't so long ago, and knowing that, you know, they within the accepted historical narrative, we're told that we've just been warring forever, and we've had these bad traits within us forever. But then it's like, you don't go that far back and you see the examples of something that wouldn't hold that within their hearts and then create such beauty as well. There's a disconnect there. So the inversion that's been placed upon humanity has ripped the roots from who we are, what we are, where we came from. We don't have those answers fully right now, and that's devious. That is, it's a devious way to control through trauma, and then the, you know, disconnect of the roots, and like constant trauma. So looking back into the last 100 years of human generations, and knowing that this trauma that occurred, you know, like just like in a family, this generational trauma that continues and continues, and it's broken us to this point. But kind of just like the seed breaks in order to grow, here we are, right? So we're in this other side of the cycle where it's ready to rock and roll, because we're growing stronger every day within our reconnection to our roots and into our reconnection to the natural world, which sometimes we're just completely blind to the fact that we are in nature always, even inside of a city. But that connection is coming stronger and stronger every day, and with that comes this reconnection to the other beings. I think there could even be a bit of a remembrance on their part, just as much as there's a remembrance on our part to who we were at one point in time, which there's plenty of documentation and oral traditions and mythologies, and that have talked about the Sasquatch people. And that's something that, it's like in this world of Sasquatch research, there's people who think that they're just flesh and blood and a primate out in the forest that we haven't seen, and their numbers are small. And then there's this other side of people who are actually having true connections with them and learning that they are higher dimensional. They are higher consciousness. They have compassion and love and understanding and a lot of humor. And I think it was Tom Cantrell who said this, but they look at us as if we're babies holding guns, you know, like we don't know our power and we don't know how much we can destroy. So they're reaching out, and this is a pivotal point. I'm not the only one who's having these experiences and having them amped up, and having them show us little by little just how much they can do.
And that's a huge signal. It means that we're ready, you know, and maybe not all of humanity, but there's a section of the population that is already tuned in to that heart energy. And I'm seeing it in other situations as well. And with the crazy that's playing out in the world, which I think it's going to be ending very soon, this heart-based connection is coming back. And I'm seeing it. It's not in the head. It's based on the heart. And I think it's based on the grid and the consciousness, because they can't destroy the grid. I mean, they can dismantle it and bomb it and do all the things they've done to it. But that consciousness is still there. That energy is still there. And that communicates with us, whether we know it or not. And again, some people are more tuned into that than others. I mean, I don't think I would be on the path that I'm on if I didn't have that connection. And not knowing a lifelong connection long before I became conscious of it.
Yeah.
It's like my path brought me along this way. Just experiences in my life. I didn't plan anything.
Right?
People that I've met, places that I've been, places that I've lived. It's all been about informing me about what I'm talking about now. And I finally got the awareness to be able to start putting it together. But I mean, the fact that I even got the awareness at all, I mean, I grew up in a middle-class family outside of Washington, D.C. My parents were teachers, very conventional. They're still very conventional. Nothing in my upbringing that prepared me for this. It was just the process of living my life, which tells me I was born to do this. That's what I get out of it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. For sure.
Before you're born, this is your mission.
All right.
All right.
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. I in those formative years of just like, diving into any and all of the topics that I wanted. This also, it's interesting. Like I never had a computer up until like 2009. So I didn't have a lot of exposure to the internet or being able to research. But then this all coincided together where I got my first computer. I moved up to the Pacific Northwest. I'm having these experiences. And then I had the capability of like researching the heck out of everything and devoting all of that time to that. And then it's like even more stuff's happening up in the sky. I'm learning about that. I'm learning about the communities in the Pacific Northwest that are very aware of the connection to the star people and the volcanoes, really the mountains. Like there is a connection. I personally have seen a doorway of light open up on the side of Mount Adams and seen light ships go in and out from that mountain. It's referred to by some people as an airport, like an interdimensional airport. And that's one of many volcanoes that are up here. And there's pyramids up here too. There's a pyramid in there's 3 in Washington. There's 2 up on the border in a town called Chewelah, like near there. And then there's another one that's close to Amboy. It's inside Amboy, Washington. And so there's so much hidden aspects still, because no one is officially registering these as pyramids, but when you look at them, it's pretty obvious. And the infrastructure that was here in those megalithic older times, and then coming forward into this era that has been mostly destroyed, but we still have some aspects of the buildings left. This place was a hub. And the energy that is here, that's off the coast, all of that, for whatever reason, this is a hub for interdimensional aspects of reality. So there's a huge concentration of the Sasquatch people who are residing here in the physical. There's a lot of trees, there's a lot of forest, and they are experiencing the physical aspect of this world, but they're going in and out of it. And there's so much love and compassion that they've shared with me, and that I've seen them share with other people in our group. And just a real quick recap of that. In 2018, I joined a group that I first saw on YouTube. It was a channel on YouTube because from 2013, I had my first Sasquatch encounter near Mount Adams, actually. And from 13 onward, I was really developing my relationship with him and learning about places that I could go and interact with him, mostly in kind of like larger group settings where there were gatherings for celebrating their spiritual and psychic nature and their higher dimensional nature. So I was learning a lot of that through that community. And I think it was about 2015, I learned about Barb Shoop's channel, which back then was called Squatchin' with Barb and Gabby, and has since been renamed Squatchin' with Barb and Goldie. And Gabby was a dog of hers that would go out into the woods with her and had just as many interactions with the Sasquatch as she was. She started documenting, and that turned into not just her leaving gifts out at her cabin, but then also starting up camping trips, intentional camping trips in the area that she lives, for people to intentionally go in and have respectful contact with the Sasquatch people. And so I was a huge fan of her show when I learned about it, because I was like, she's for real. These people are for real. They're not messing around. They're telling the truth, and they're not afraid. And they are talking about the paranormal stuff, which again, if you go back to the beginning of her videos and just watch them through, there is this progression. There's this progression of teaching and intensity of connections by the Sasquatch to us. So in 2018, she put the call out that she was going to let new members join, and that you had to write a 500-word essay on why you thought you'd be a good member. And I was like, I'm writing my essay. And so I sent it off to her, and she did pick me and a few others to join. And that started, it was like I was in kindergarten up until then, and then I went into the university with these campouts and interaction and connection with the Sasquatch. And on that first trip, that first night of that first trip in June of 2018, I had a whole series of events happen in my tent after I had gone in there to go to sleep. And that included about my cat scratching at the door. Okay. I'll start over a little bit. That first camp out, that first night of that first camp out in June of 2018, I had a series of events happen. There were about, I think, 3 individuals outside my tent, right outside, and they were speaking, and they were speaking to each other. It was a language I had never heard. It was monotone, and it was androgynous. It was not either masculine or feminine. But there was a conversation happening, and then I got touched on the sides of my head by 2 fingers, like one on either side, but the fingers were very large, and they went from the temples all the way down to the jaw. And then I got an energetic scan that went down my body, which felt like if your foot's asleep, that tingly sensation. It was like that went down all the way down the body. I had an orb of light that was about like between like a grapefruit and an orange size show up inside of my tent that was filled with like thousands of sparkling lights on the inside. And I fell asleep right after, like all of this stuff. And that set off a series of events in my personal healing, which I think they were like, if you're serious about wanting to take the next steps with us, you got to cleanse yourself, and you got to start healing emotionally and physically. And I listened to that humbly. And I had actually been I've dealt with alcoholism for a pretty good chunk of my life, and I went towards alcohol to numb myself from the pain and trauma of my life, and that is what was healed in me on that on that first camp out. I was touched right here, right? I went home from that camp, and I gotta say this too. When I walked into the woods for the first time on that camp out, I said to them, I telepathed to them. I said, I know you guys can help heal what needs to be healed, and if you could help me heal what I need to have healed, I would appreciate that. I did make a request, but I was so ashamed I couldn't say, hey, can you help me out with my alcohol problem? I said, can you please help me heal with what I need to be healed? And so when I came back from that trip, I did continue to drink. And at this point, I was only having only having like a few ciders or whatever a night, but I was habitual in my I I was habitual in my habits. I was doing it. And then on the 3rd of July, 2018, I stepped outside my house and I had an orb of white light fly right above the treetops and go right over top where I was standing. And I was staring at it and I was looking at it, and it went across behind the house, which was standing behind me, or which was behind me. And then I went inside. I went to bed. I've seen that before. You know, it wasn't extravagant, but when I woke up the next morning, the entire world was spinning. The entire world was spinning. I couldn't stand up straight. And then I personally thought, I was like, wow, did I drink that much? Am I still drunk? Like, what's going on? My partner, she had to go to work that day, but I had the day off because it was 4th of July. And I just went back to bed because I thought I'll sleep it off. And when I woke up again an hour later, it was still like that and even worse. I went to bed again. I forced myself to sleep again, woke up again. World's still spinning, and I can't walk like without just going head over heels. I called up my partner. I was like, something's wrong. And we were able to go to the emergency room, and I got diagnosed with vertigo. Okay. I've never had vertigo before in my life. And I get home and I continued to have it from the 4th of July to October. And I couldn't work. I couldn't walk without a cane. I couldn't drive. I couldn't do anything except for, and I couldn't drink either, right? And I just had to really process this aspect of healing. And looking back, it's like they set up something, you know. They did this thing while I was in the forest. They touched the sides. I learned vertigo is all about this imbalance thing that happens inside the inner ear. And it's the same effect as when you drink alcohol, that's what affects that. And that's why you get the spins. So every moment that I had my eyes open, it was like I had drank a bottle of Jack Daniels to myself. And then I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this is the most potent and beautiful healing I could ever receive, because it was like a compassionate parent sitting me down and handing me a pack of smokes after I got caught smoking one, and said, you have to now smoke every single one of these right now. And it kicked every single urge that I ever had to drink. It's out of me, like, and I haven't touched it since. And the healing that came with that has led me to, I think, be able to have these higher experiences with them, because I've been freed from that slavery. And that makes me bawl. That makes me cry. That makes me feel so much just like gratitude that they cared that much, that they would help me with that. And that's what I've seen over and over with other people too, in whatever way, they start connecting with the Sasquatch and then their healing intensifies so much.
There's a number of different thoughts that come into mind. One is that June of 2018 was when I started blogging, made my first video. And the events that happened from the time I moved to Sedona in February of 2017 to June of 2018 was like everything was being set up. So I had found the star tetrahedron by connecting the cities and places in North America. I had extended the lines out. I had everything written down in spreadsheets. I looked at hours and hours of photographs of parks and lakes and drone footage. I'm absorbing all of this information. And when I got to Arizona, by the end of the first week, I'd gone into a organic food store where I was living in Arizona. Not because it was organic, but I don't know why I went there. It's called Mount Hope. And there was something up on the bulletin board about a women's gathering. And I called, and the lady was a high-level shaman. And I said grids, and she said grids, and I said grids. And so she invited me to that. She gave me the directions to her house, because that's why I called her, was to find out how to get there. And in meeting her and that group of women, that laid the foundation for me starting to do the work that I'm doing now, which is basically they wanted to hear my research. So I put together my first PowerPoint with what I had at the time. And that first PowerPoint was the basis of my first video, which was the only one I was going to make. I was just going to blog.
Okay.
And then it was like everything that happened from that point on was bringing me to doing this. Again, it's nothing you can plan or think, hey, I'm going to do this. It was like, it's just what happened. Like being in this group brought in other people and other situations. And an astrologer, I had an astrology reading, and he said, everything, the universe is supporting what you have to say, is basically what he said. Didn't say he didn't know what it was. And at the time, he had a videographer staying with him. He and his partner had lived in Houston, and this was the time Hurricane Harvey was coming through in 2017. So they couldn't go back. So they were stuck there for a little while. And so I worked with this young man. I had that basis for my PowerPoint that I had already done. I finished it out, did the narration for it, gave it to him. And unexpectedly, they were expecting a baby. And so he was able to work on it up until about the time that the baby was born. And then that just kind of, my life got my project got high centered on what was happening in his life. And he just couldn't get back into it. And so I'm like, this isn't a hobby project. I need to get this information out. Found the easiest video making program I could find and made my first video. And to this day, my videos aren't fancy. Basically I'm just taking my blog posts and putting them on a slideshow and recording the narration. But that's never been important to me. What's important to me is just getting the information out. And so it forced me to do that on my own, which was probably the universe saying, okay, Michelle, you need to be the one to do this. It forced me to learn how to do it and just do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, speaking is not my first love. I like to write. And so I've really had to stretch to get to the point where I'm comfortable with it, which I am now, but it's been a process. In my mind, I'm a much better writer than speaker, but it all works together. And I knew I needed to get this information out every way possible. So that helped me to overcome my not really wanting to be a speaker. But and everything really since then has just brought more and more together. And so, I think all of our experiences happen for a reason, whether they're good experiences or not good experiences.
Totally.
I think what matters is what did we learn when they're not good experiences?
Yeah.
And just, putting one foot in front of the other. Certainly in this world, there's been a lot of fear pushed on us in a lot of ways. And, and how that has conditioned many of us. But a friend of mine said not too long ago, I mean, resolve is the same vibration as love. So even where there might be fear, if you have resolve, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I got lots of resolve. I may not always feel confident.
But the resolve is there.
But the resolve is there, and the results are, what you said.
Yeah.
It's getting out there, and people are responding to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a testament to our strength and what good we are capable of and where we've been in the past of that. They really, like, the evil in this world has to throw everything that they have, and we can say maybe just over the past 100 years, that's 100 years of throwing everything that they have at trying to get us to a point where we will fully self-destruct upon each other and do it to ourselves. And it's like the more pressure, I've always looked at it like this. It's like the higher that they come up and say, okay, we have to take it a step farther. Well, it's like you just exposed yourself on the mountaintop and now we're up here. And okay, well, we have to take it a step further. Well, guess what? We see you again and now we're up here. So it's this constant escalation, an escalation by them, but then and also an escalation of the goodness within people coming through. And quality, not quantity, potentially, because there is a large swath upon the population that still doesn't understand completely like what's going on. And that's okay, because everybody's entitled to their own path and to get whatever they need to get while they're here. But yeah, this has opened me up for sure to know without a doubt that there are higher consciousness beings who are watching us. They're watching us. They're connected with us. They're not necessarily intervening to the point where we don't have to do anything and we can just let them do everything. That's not the point.
Right.
But they are there and they are encouraging us to be our best and to move through this with just a warrior's grace. So
grace, love, peace,
yeah,
and an ease.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt for a long time, we're not alone in this. The elite or cabal or controllers or whatever you want to call them aren't all powerful. And there's a lot of awake people that think they are, and they're not.
Yeah.
That's why they're throwing everything at us. They know we do what we're doing and they're done.
Mm-hmm.
But they never had that power or authority to come in and trash this place.
Yeah.
And steal and steal and steal and steal. And, that's continued.
Mining everything.
It's all been, woven into the fabric of our society. They're institutionalized theft. And so, they've kept throwing everything they have because they knew this day was going to come.
Yeah.
The fact that any of us have awakened with this density is a miracle.
True.
But the other thing is that with consciousness, and I'm not an expert in consciousness. I'm intuitive, and I've encountered bits of information along the way. And in what I know, I'm pretty knowledgeable. But as far as that being said, my understanding about consciousness is that it doesn't take all of us to raise our consciousness. It takes enough of us.
Yeah.
Because even one person raising their consciousness into love, you get Hawkins' power versus force, raises the collective.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody that's doing the work or any kind of spiritual work or having, breakthroughs where they can start to see this like you have, is raising everyone's consciousness, floats all boats, and that's where you get the 100th monkey effect.
Yeah.
And so we are truly all connected, all of us, and all life. And yes, they've gone after all of us for a reason. And they've taught us to believe that we're not powerful, that God is outside of us, and everything that they could think of, worship them. But when we realize that God is inside of us and the universe is inside of us, and I'm glad to hear that the Sasquatch have had that knowledge. When you look at love is the most powerful force in the universe, and that means love the people. Okay, that means love everybody. It doesn't mean only love the people that you like or the situations that you like.
Yeah.
That's the hardest lesson for us to learn, and I put myself in that same boat. There's a lot of things I know intellectually that is very hard for me to practice. But that's what I'm hearing you say is the compassion of the Sasquatch doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Love is the thing.
They so there are ways in which they communicate to myself and to people that I know and pretty much everybody. And some people do have telepathic communication with them. And it happens, it can happen maybe just once for someone, or it can be a continuous conversation. And there's also glyphs that they'll leave out in specific spots for you to find. And a glyph is terminology that again, I think Tom Cantrell and Brian Bland, they coined this term for this particular aspect of the Sasquatch, and they studied glyphs for a very long time. We're still studying glyphs, but they documented thousands of them, and it's a symbol made of the sticks and rocks and different natural things. And there's specific like they'll use an X a lot, and sometimes it'll be an X with a base underneath that. There's no glyph to English dictionary, unfortunately. So there's really no, like academic way of saying this means this and this means this. But again, it comes more down to you see this, that they left it for you, and what are you feeling in your heart about it? What is your sixth sense saying what the message is? And one of the largest messages that they convey to us on a regular basis is that we are one. we are brothers and sisters. There is a unity within everything, and they acknowledge God. They acknowledge the creator of all creation. That is part of who they are as well. They value family. They according to Tom, again, Tom's an elder in our group, and he worked in the forests of the Pacific Northwest for I think like 50 plus years. He just turned 77, I think, maybe 78. And he's had 60 plus years of connection with the Sasquatch. And so I forget where I was going with that. Sorry. But the glyphs, there's that is a message that's conveyed mostly, is that, you know, we are one. We are in this. Oh, now I remember. Tom says that they have a 0% population. They know when one of theirs dies, and that's when another one comes in. They don't have an overpopulation. They don't have an underpopulation. They keep it like completely balanced. The balance that they have with nature is something that they live, you know, every day with. They're in a harmonious way, and that doesn't mean that they're like, you know, they don't eat meat or or whatever. You know, they're making structures out of trees that they're ripping up out of the thing, and they're eating meat, they're hunting, and they're doing these things, but they're in a natural flow with this world. There's a man by the name of Kuani Lapsaritis. Do you know of his work?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. He's written some books. He's been very outspoken about their connection to the Star Nations, and you know, the fact that they are these higher dimensional people. And he was communicating with Sasquatch and leaving paper out, because they can write in English, and they can probably write and talk in any language that they want. But he was communicating in this fashion, and one of the Sasquatch, ancient Sasquatch named Haloti, who he was speaking to, she said something very interesting in written form, and said that we come from the seed of Adam, not of Cain. So, and they are known as a primal people, that they were some of the first people. So, I recently read just a little snippet of a lecture that Rudolf Steiner did, and he was talking about the secret, a secret that the Rosicrucians knew, and a few others knew, but it wasn't totally widespread in Christianity. And it went along the lines of that, and Elohim, one of the Elohim made Eve, and then that Elohim united with Eve and created Cain. And then another Elohim created Adam, and then the Adam and the Eve, the two humans, came together to create Abel. So that the Cain lineage had this other, Elohim element to it, but that the other children from the Adam and the Eve, those were like humans. So I just recently read that, and it made me think of this, you know, from I think 2004, this written down note that the Sasquatch gave to Kuani, where he said, "We are from the seed of Adam. We are not from the line of Cain." So, that's interesting, because that does put them as a primal people. That does put them as someone, you know, that was evolving here, just like we have, but they went in one direction, we went in another. And this is just my speculation. I've never had the history of Sasquatch given to me, but I found that pretty fascinating, that potential connection.
I'll send you a video, Ashley. It's called European Confessions of a Moorish Legacy by Richard Smith. It's also known as the UFO teacher. He was one of the few people talking about the Moors when I was looking for information, and I think he talks about that in that video. So I want to send it to you.
Interesting. Cool. Thank you.
It might help some insight into that. Yeah, there's just so much that's been kept from us. Not only are we lied to all the time about things that are happening in real time in our world, we've been lied to everything we've ever learned. And so, there, knowledge is kept close in secret society circles, and they're not talking. They like to drop hints. We know something you don't know, but they're not coming out with it.
And even in the modern day secret societies, or the open ones of the Freemasons or the like, not even the members know. Right. Like you have more information than a 3rd degree Mason.
And I completely agree with you. The only ones that know are at the upper echelon.
Yeah.
And I say that because I know that the Masons were part of this, but not all Masons.
Right.
You have to get up into the upper degree, like even 33rd degree. 32nd's getting up there. They're Shriners, but they don't know what the 33rd degree knows. And I've heard levels above that. So somebody knows.
One time I heard there was 360.
Well, there are in Moorish Masonry.
Oh, okay.
When it was a positive thing, they're the ones that built everything.
Yeah.
But the basically the European Freemasonry got frozen at 32, 33 degrees because they can't do what the original Masons could do.
Mm-hmm.
All they can do is reverse and invert, take sacred geometry and flip it and cast spells and, do things to keep us bound.
I see that on a daily basis, definitely. And I've lived in pretty large cities where it's obvious that they're part of the grid and they have a negative influence upon them, an artificial influence for people to go insane. And in that's in Phoenix, that's in Portland, that's in many different places. It's not just because there's a larger group of people who are living amongst each other. There's something else in the inversion of this grid. If cataclysm happened in the past because the grid was messed with and something boom went out into the entire thing, busted it, and then it was free reign for these jerks to come through and manipulate them in the way that they do, and then set up shop and then move everyone in and charge rent. Well, that looks like it's kind of happened.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago.
It was not that long ago. My goodness. I'm still trying to, it's like, especially with America. America is so different than anywhere else when we're talking about this because it's so new. And in terms of what we're told, right? Like this is like, and literally like the Pacific Northwest is like the last standout or standoff, for even their narrative. Like everything else was supposedly taken over, whatever. And then, people started coming in from the East, and the last place that they hit for total domination or whatever was the Pacific Northwest. Interesting that there's a large Sasquatch population here. Interesting that there was the architecture here in the city, that has mostly been destroyed, but there's still some incredible. There's castles in the city, and I look at these, and they're called churches today, but it's like, oh no, this is a castle, and it looks you could plop this in the middle of Germany and it wouldn't look any different. So we even with Native American history, with the indigenous people, you know, and we know that they were, their roots were ripped just as much as ours, and their history of the cities and of this Moorish civilization and this higher dimensional consciousness stuff that was fully in effect, like their history got ripped up too. And
I mean, talk about brainwashing and mind
full
control.
on. Yeah.
I mean, to get the indigenous people to believe that fake history that they gave them, you know, is beyond belief. And I'm sure there are elders that know the truth. But if you've been persecuted beyond belief and killed and genocided and, you know, run onto reservations or whatever, you're going to have so much trauma. Why are you going to tell anybody?
Yeah, you're not gonna.
That's not true. You know, and you know, and but you know, it's been so conditioned with the Western movies and all this other stuff that this is what it means to be an Indian. It's like your ancestors built all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And it's like, you know, and tribe, you know, tribe of Israel. I mean, you know, that's what we're talking about. And they just like split everything out and they made it into something different. So, you know, the pyramid with the eye over it, you know, becomes Big Brother and the symbol of the Illuminati when it was about the pineal gland and connecting with higher self. And, you know, the Star of David or Remphan or whatever it is, I recognize as the Merkaba, two-dimensional Merkaba, is the Jews, and their identity was taken.
Yeah.
The Hebrew Israelites who were here and everywhere.
Yeah.
You have this crescent and the star, and that becomes Islam. And I think a couple of other even the Masonic symbol was lifted. So all of that was part of the original civilization. So everybody was all the same. There was no separation.
Yeah.
But they got turned into organized religions for the purposes of control, like you have with organized crime and organized gambling and organized sports. You know, it was all brought in as part of this control system. And that's really hard because it goes deep. I mean, what's taken place here goes deep into people's belief systems. You know, that somehow we're beasts and you know, it's our fault, sin, all this other stuff. You know, that's been ingrained in our consciousness.
Yeah.
And so, you know, to even talk about some of that stuff, it's like very difficult because I know in my own family, they're quite religious in a good way. I mean, they're good people.
Yeah.
They believe it with all their hearts. And, you know, but that's, you know, the truth is we've all got that divine spark. I could say we're all divine and, you know, mean it, but, you know, it's like we have divine natures, but we don't know that.
We have divine nature and we're in a realm with free will. So we literally have the free will to go against God. Like that's the biggest gift that God could give us, kind of, you know, because it sets us up individually on a path to experience whatever it is we need to. That the free will of this place gives us also the opportunity to, you know, go through the stratosphere in terms of what we can do with God and with good. So,
you know, and that raises a lot of questions. Was this allowed?
Yeah.
When talk about we have to do this ourselves, we do. We have to be active participants in getting out of this mess.
Mm-hmm.
and coming back into our hearts in these conditions.
Yeah. Which
And,
is,
I mean, part of my understanding, and again, I used to think I knew how things were going to happen, and I don't know that anymore. I just know good's going to win over evil. I know that.
yeah.
So we're, if we talk about ascension, and for quite a while, I felt like, this can't be allowed to happen again. We have to get back into our hearts, and we have to, we can't judge, and that's hard. It's hard not to judge what's happened, but we really can't. We can't be in that same level of consciousness that created it.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean we have to hit ourselves over the head if we have a hard time doing that, like we've been taught,
Mm-hmm.
That we're bad because we have difficulty letting go or letting go of our ego or whatever. But I think if we just point the car in that direction, and be the best person or version of ourselves that we can be, we're making an effort.
Mm-hmm.
Helping others, being kind, being compassionate, because we have been through a lot.
Yeah, everybody's got a story here, man. Like nobody gets out of this experience without trauma. And that's okay, because we have the capability of healing from that trauma, and then also inverting that trauma into something positive and becoming bigger and better because of that. And not everybody knows that. Not everybody has the tools, and we are dealing with, like you said, the drug addiction, the drug addictions, the mental health, and all of these ways in which there's suffering in humans. These are these outside influences that are really just keeping us down and into the bottom aspects. Like you said, we're turn the worst ways in which humanity can be. We're in that, and it's reversible. Like all of these things can be reversed very quickly if we had the tools and the knowledge of what we were facing, and the correct tools of how to help them. The mental health crisis within humanity is, I'm certainly convinced through my own personal experience, because I did work with people with mental health issues for a good part of my life, and like the work of Jerry Marzinsky, who worked with schizophrenics for 30 plus years in some very specific environments. And he's like, we're not dealing with a chemical imbalance of the brain, but we're dealing with a negative influence, a demonic influence that has been able to chip out a little area of these people's consciousness and get in there and just completely torment. So we are in a spiritual battlefield every moment of our lives, because we're in it, and if we had the tools, if we had the correct tools, you're not going to heal mental illness with psychotic drugs, but you can heal it through spiritual practice, but you'll never have a psychiatrist tell you to go to the shaman.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not going to happen. And that's through, this destruction and inversion of health and mental health, physical health. What we had in the 1800s and before the Rockefeller system came in of medicine, it really makes me wonder with the energetic grid and with the cathedrals and with the frequency energy healing that was occurring back then. Was there mental health issues, or were they not there because we had a frequency that we were inside of a scalar field, like we were inside of this field of frequency that was higher vibration and keeping stuff out. that collapses, then it's party time for everybody to come here, right?
Right. And I don't think humanity had those problems before.
Yeah.
You know, they came in with the hijack, and so the controllers brought in plenty of booze. Everywhere they went, they set up breweries, like more than one.
Massive.
Massive.
Hey, let's put them in Utah because
know?
they need it, right?
So there's, breweries going up everywhere, distilleries. They associate alcohol with football and with theme parks and having a good time, and here, have some more, and then they bring in the temperance movement and say, you're bad if you drink. We're going to take your kids away. And again, this was 19th century stuff. So as far as I'm concerned, humanity had a horrible time during the 19th century, whatever was going on.
Yeah.
Because I'm working on some research that somebody else is sending me information on, and there's insane asylums all over the mountains, like in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, grand old buildings that were turned into insane asylums, and it's like, what were they, just warehousing people? I mean, but that's what they were, and now they're this beautiful abandoned buildings, many times haunted. So anyway, that's the 1900s. But I'm just saying, so that was going on. They were plying us with alcohol. MK Ultra's a real thing. Whether it was 1-on-1 or TV or planes blowing up out of the sky, all of that's to get us into that extreme state of fear and wanting to give our freedom away. So there's that aspect of it. And then I just want to mention examples like Salvador Dali and the Surrealist movement in art. So Dali was a kook. He was crazy. But he was held up, or he acted crazy, but he was held up as like the epitome of these people that wanted to break our psyche.
Yeah.
That's what they were trying for. And there was something called the Surrealist Manifesto by a man named Andre Breton, who was a socialist. And you hear the word manifesto a lot. And so the art community was bringing in this, completely irrational, nonsensical art, but it was meant to break our minds. And that's what they've been doing.
Yeah.
And this has all been pushed on us. If we're left alone, we're not like that.
Yep.
We're just not. And so, I'm grateful that I came from a family that was a loving family, and I had a lot of good role models. I mean, I didn't know about any of the dark stuff until I was much older, which I'm very thankful for.
For sure.
I mean, the demonics, the stuff that's been going on. That if you're not awake, you probably don't know about, but most awake people probably do know about the horrible stuff that's been going on.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, I'm just saying it's all been forced on us. It's all been manipulated. And we're still waking up and still coming back into our heart. And
even stronger.
So I'm seeing two things. I'm seeing that happening, and then I'm seeing the absolute cray-cray that's playing out. But they're both happening. That's happening at the same time. And the heart seems stronger. And the reason that it hasn't hit the general public, it just hasn't hit the general public yet, but it will. It will. We're close to, I truly believe we're close to that happening. That these guys are going to be held accountable for what they've done.
It definitely seems with kind of these larger trauma-based actions that are happening within the world, there's more people going, wait a minute, and even with the medical happenings of 2020 lockdowns and all of that forced a lot of people out of their comfort zones, because for the first time they started seeing wait, why are you trying to do this to me? Why are you trying to do this to my children? None of this makes sense. People started standing up for the first time through that. So yeah, that was an interesting curveball sent and strategic, and also played out within the past. There's really no new playbooks from people who can't create,
Right,
and the
exactly.
dark side can't create. So their playbooks, are the same. And this time around, there was a lot of people who were very comfortable in their lives and um, in their jobs and in their place in society, who became very uncomfortable and started moving away from all of that because that happened. So all with purpose. Like I can't ever question, God, do you think you know what you're doing? Yeah, you know what you're doing, and the hard times create the heroes, right? And the hard times, we come here because we can do it. So I'm grateful to be here during this time, and to have had all of the experiences that I've had, because even now, like, I just have more hope, and I have more of a focus on the future and what it's going to look like with me being sovereign than ever before. Like, that's a goal of mine, and that's a goal of many, and it's something that when it becomes a goal, you're not going to give it up. You're not going to just say, oh, I don't believe in that sovereignty anymore. It's like, no, man, now it's on. And now the army's gathering all around. So,
yeah, I agree. And I think we're pretty close to it bursting out on the surface. So kind of getting back to this, why was this allowed to happen? I do see that we needed those fires to harden our resolve, and also to there was something that you said about just being strong souls. I've heard in the past, only the strongest souls are here now, when incarnating. It's like, okay, you go ahead and go on in. So it's really an exciting time to be here. And also, my understanding again is that we're at that evolutionary point in our history, and that what happens here affects the rest of the universe. So it's really game on.
yeah.
The dark's already done enough damage everywhere, not just here. But again, they thought they had it in a lot of ways. Maybe they knew we were going to wake up, but with the arrogance and everything else, the mockery of the creator, mockery of us, they just can't think outside of that very limited framework.
Mm-hmm.
And so they truly need organic life and energy, because they don't have it.
And they're siphoning in energetic vampiric ways from humanity, with this unnatural trauma thrown upon us, and it's a big buffet. And this has been known for a really long time and talked about in different ways and expressed in different ways. And again, it's like, if we had a full, true, conscious understanding of, like, oh, this is spiritual battlefield, and there are unseen negative entities and influences running amok because of whatever reason that they are able to do so now. There's also these other higher beings that are helping and encouraging in the ways that they are. And we do have the strength and capability of defending ourselves energetically from these that wish us harm. and we can practice that daily, and we can within our own energetic abilities start clearing this place up, maybe just the same as that energy grid once did, but now it's coming through the humans, and not just like the external technology. But we don't have those, like nobody knows those tools, right? Like nobody knows that they actually have those tools within them, not on the scale that is needed. But it's getting out there. Like it is, like more and more people are figuring it out. I think it's interesting that, when did whatever happened, whatever big cataclysm happened that shifted soil, the stuff was just getting dug out, and it started to get dug out in the 1800s, right?
That's what I think.
So that is a short amount of time, and even like just like this section of it, to where people are becoming aware of what this is, where we're at, and what we are capable of. It doesn't take much for us to get back into the natural rhythm of things, and to remember the tools that we have. So, and it's happening, and I it's been said a lot in a lot of different ways, but the only way you heal the world is to heal yourself, right? Heal yourself, heal the world. We're not here to try to fix the obstacle course. We're here to get through it, and to navigate it, and build our muscles accordingly to what obstacle is next, and to build ourselves, not tear down the obstacle. The obstacle is there to strengthen us. So I see that too as, here's this time where we really get to strengthen, because if cataclysm is coming soon, if there's atmospheric change, if there's a brand new way in which we all have to live in this realm, and maybe it mirrors kind of a way that we did back in the past, that is a little more organic and closer to nature. Well, it's good that I'm going through this obstacle course now.
Yeah, exactly. Where I really started to break free was when I joined the Army in 82. I was born in 63. So up until my 19, when I was 19 was when I went in the service. I always thought of myself as an old soul. I liked hanging out with the old people. And actually my degree was in geriatric social work. That's what I did for a number of years. So I liked old people. And was attracted to older men, but I learned older doesn't necessarily mean wiser or smarter. They think it does, but
yeah.
So I had to learn that lesson. That's why I've had a companion cat for 15 years, and I'm very happy with that.
There you go.
Because I was raised. I tell people I'm a Southern woman, even though I wasn't raised in the South, because my parents were Southern. And so I have a real hard time with being codependent in relationships. And so I tend to just shove down my own needs and things like that. So I really function best when I'm by myself. But I was always pretty awake and aware to certain things. I wasn't awake like I am now, for sure. But I started noticing things even at a young age that were out of place. And so but I started blazing my own path and having those experiences that I needed for later. And had I not done that, I probably would have stayed in a very stuck place. Maybe I would have awakened, but I seriously doubt it. I needed to have that forward momentum to be able to, break patterns and expectations and things like that. Because I'm also double Cancer in my chart. I've got a lot of water signs. I'm kind of a caregiver kind of person. But I also have Virgo. I have a strong Virgo in my chart. I have other strong aspects in my chart which contribute to where I am today and the kind of person that I am. So with the Virgo, I've got a lot of organizational skills, and I kind of organize my way through life, where with my, watery sensitive side, I'm just kind of fluid. Might have difficulties with boundaries. These are ways I've come to understand myself. It's helpful, information, whatever information is helpful to help us think outside of the box. And that's how I look at astrology. I don't follow it on a daily basis, but I've had some readings of my birth chart over the years, and it's been extremely helpful.
Yeah.
And so all the things that want to keep me in place, I've got this tension that keeps me moving forward with different elements. And so that's all worked together to, again, help me overcome any uncertainties or anything, especially with the work that I'm doing. I have moments like, do I really want to put that out there? But it's like, oh yeah. I kind of look at it, it's like having one chance at the brass ring. I've got to get this information out there. And so, and then try to put it in a way where people can see for themselves, or, maybe think differently by showing patterns and things like that about this original civilization and the grid system. Who are the Moors, how they're connected to the Israelites, all those different things, because that's been well hidden from us with everything else. And, the worst part of it is using race and religion as a dividing tactic.
Yeah. And it was so obvious once you start looking at the artifacts from the past, how, everything that they tell us about where, the origins of humanity come from, and where the different races come from, and where their migration patterns were, it is garbage. And we have all of Black people have been in Europe and in seats of power, and that history is taken away. But you follow the paintings, you can see a story unfold.
Same thing with the grid lines.
Yeah,
that's how I found it, was following the grid lines.
Yeah, it's just these aspects these aspects that once united us in the past, these differences that once united us in complementary, beautiful ways, to where all had value, and that has been inverted and ripped away from each other. The disassociation between people, and now we're going to create a new narrative where that where once there was love, there's now going to be hate. We're going to teach you how to hate one another for the difference, instead of the celebration of the unity, and the celebration of the different ways that unity is expressed. So it's apparent, like, with just a little bit of digging into the past, that there was this unified aspect. There were good kings, there were beautiful kingdoms. There was co-creation and coexistence, and that it was probably at one point like much more Tolkien-esque, than we could ever imagine.
Dragons and fairies and elves.
Dragons and fairies and elves. Yes. Guess what? Those are real. They're just as real as the Sasquatch, and
mermaids.
Yes.
And unicorns.
Yes.
Don't forget.
Yes. All of these things. That's so I recently helped out with a project. It's a documentary that came out this past October 17th. It's called a Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's on Vimeo, and if you just look up a Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot, you'll find it. But that's what that was. I talked about that a little bit, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit more. But we think that that magic isn't in this place, or if it is, it's just kind of delegated to certain aspects of life. And that's not the case, man. It's like there's magic in all of this. There is, and that magic is, that word magic is just kind of like a placeholder for divine, for divinity, for the more total look of outlook on this experience. And those things that were written down and documented in the past, of the mermaids and of the satyrs and the dragons, the Sasquatch, the wild men, all of these things, they're still with us. They're still here. And if the Sasquatch know how to cloak themselves, which they do, who else knows how to cloak themselves? Who is exposing themselves to those who are ready? Because I will say this, not this past September, but the September before, I went to some friends of mine live on a very, very large piece of land out in the gorge. And she has had a female Sasquatch make known to her that she's ready to make contact. And my friend, it's a married couple, a man and a woman who live out there. And the woman, she's very, very psychic. She's got a lot of capabilities. She's been communicating with a lot of different dimensional beings for most of her life. And so when she felt this energy, she was like, okay, I think it's time for you to come out here and camp. I think it's time that we need to make this next step for connection and communication with this particular shamanic female Sasquatch that lives there. So again, 2 Septembers ago, I went out with a couple of people with my group. And so it was the three of us, and we camped on a specific area of the land. And on the second night of that trip, I had a series of events happen that were completely off the charts, to include connection with the Sasquatch. I'm pretty sure connection to her, because she also did an energetic deal on my body for close to 45 minutes. And I have a lot to say about that, but I want to skip over to this other part, because after I had this interaction with her, I had slept in my truck that camp out. I think one of the poles broke on my tent, and I was like, well, I'm going to check it out, see how it's like airplane mode. I'll put this front passenger seat of the truck back, and I'll sleep like that. And that's what I did. And I had a visit from fairies. I saw 2 fairies, and they show it was after this experience with the Sasquatch, and I'm processing that, and it's completely pitch black. And I have some coverings on the windows that don't fit correctly. They were for a different car, but I used them because they've got magnets, and they kind of, hid partial pieces of the front windshield, and then the driver's side door window, and then my window. But over in the driver's side side window, there was a large gap, and so I could see where the outside side mirror was. And it's completely pitch black, and I see this little glowing emerald green female figure, like 4 inches tall, peek around the side mirror. And I was like, no effing way. Like, this is, I cannot, I just had this insane, like really intense experience with the Sasquatch. And I'm laying back like this. I'm not moving a muscle. And she's peeking around looking like this. And she has no clothing on or anything, but I can see her breasts. I can see her hips, and I can see a lighter green, like a jade green coming off of her in the shape of wings. And then herself is this bright bioluminescent deep emerald green color. I don't see eyes. I don't see, I might see a little shape of a nose, but I don't really see like, details of the face. But she's popping in and out like this and looking at me. The wings aren't moving or anything. She's just being able to float. And I'm laying there and I'm just moving my eyes and looking over there. And she knows when I'm moving my eyes because she moves back behind each time I go. And then she peeks out again. And this is going on for a few minutes, which is a lifetime when these things are occurring. And then she is not alone. And there's another one that pops up right up top of where she is. And they both look the same, and they're both darting in and out like this. And I was in an overload, right? I was just completely overloaded with all of these experiences. And I was like, I just need to go to sleep, because if I don't, I'm going to have to go pee, and I am not getting out of this truck. Like, I just need to go to sleep. And I'm thinking this over and over, like, this is too much. I just need to go to sleep. So then what happens? I close my eyes. And when I close my eyes, these two ribbons of just bright purple start doing this and coming to meet in the middle. And my eyes are closed, and I'm seeing this with my eyes closed. So I open my eyes and I can still see it. And I close my eyes and I can still see it. And I open my eyes and I can still see it. I close my eyes, I can still see it. And this is happening as these two ribbons are coming together. And when they hit, I fell asleep. And I didn't wake up until that next morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning or so. And the sun was coming up, and I was like, okay, now I can go outside and go to the potty tent and go to the bathroom. And when I did, when I left the potty tent and I was walking back over to the truck, I saw the two friends that I brought with me, Kevin and Sandy, and they were next to the truck. And I was like, what are you guys doing up? I just woke up. And they were like, we just woke up. So they were in their tent, and somehow we all woke up at the same time. And when they woke up, they heard women's voices, tiny women's voices outside of their tent. And I was like, y'all don't even know what happened to me last night. But that experience was like, yeah, that's real too. And they've never gone away. And we can reach back into that connection with them and have that. And people are doing it all the time. It's not wacky for someone to be like, oh yeah, I'm speaking with the star people, and I have fairies in my house, and the Sasquatch left footprints in my home, but I'm in the middle of the city. All of those things are happening.
Yep. And that's been a great gift for me in the time that I've lived around the Sedona area. I have lots of friends in the time that I've been here that are get that kind of information. And what's really interesting, I mean, is like when information is completely gone, there's only one way for it to come back in. And those are ways that our dogmatic thinking world don't necessarily understand or accept, or they think it's bad or whatever. I don't think that at all. If there's only one way for something to come back in and it's completely gone, then that's how it comes in. And so I have not anybody I'm connected with currently, but I've had a lot of psychic friends. And that's been an important part of my journey in terms of getting all the information that I needed and missing pieces, several of which that came in that way. I did some work with a lady. I'm not sure where she is now. She's got a very special path. She'd been a special ed teacher. She lost her husband, but then she started getting gifts of light language and connecting with people that are in autistic form but are higher dimensional beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where they're connecting through the heart. And I did work with her for about a year. I was in her classroom of the heart, where she was connected to these higher dimensional autistic people in physical form. But they do that so that they're not a threat. So they come in, they have like a parent or somebody that they're close to that they're bonded with, that they communicate with in other ways. But with my friend, they communicated telepathically.
Wow.
And I had a big breakthrough with her. And then there was another lady that I had another big breakthrough. So with Deborah, the breakthrough was we were talking about the grids, and I guess one of the autistic masters was a grid expert. And I had the idea of the dragon lines, the two great dragon lines that circle the earth, that cross in two places that form like a figure eight. And then she got the information about the controllers chicken wired that whole concept of a loop. And that's was the beginnings of the 1492, 1942, 1717. That was the beginnings of it. This happened in the same year. So that was like February. And then sometime around March or so, maybe April, because this was rolling around in my head, but it hadn't come into form yet. And then another psychic friend went to visit my roommate, who was a reader, stopped by to say hi, and she said, "Oh, I see your guides. They want me to tell you something. They're showing me the year 1742, and on one side of 1742, it's white and frozen, and on the other side, it's green and sunny." And so I looked up 1742 and got the Great Frost of Ireland happening between 1740 and 1741. And then Handel's Messiah in Dublin in 1742 in April. So this Great Frost happened, and then this premiere of the Messiah happens like nothing ever happened. But it's all connected to how they occulted the timeline. And I mean, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's something to that. But that's how I got the information. I had no other reason to look there at that particular year. And so, you know, sometimes people comment and say, well, you know, don't trust that channeling stuff. But it's like,
you can,
how else is this information going to come back when the controllers have removed everything?
Yeah.
That could help us.
Yeah.
Whether it's under the Vatican or burned or whatever they did to it, to try to make anything that was previously written go away, and then give us stuff they wrote to explain everything.
Yeah. 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 And it's just important to have discernment, because
exactly,
you know, with everything, and to analyze everything with discernment and build that muscle. We're living in a world right now where I could show you the best you know, video out there, completely, you know, non-blurry, whatever, of a Sasquatch, and I couldn't really like prove to you if it was real or AI generated. Everything is in a place of flux, I would think. I think because there's some the deception upon the screen is complete. You know, they can show us anything they want, and they can create anything that they want on a screen and say this is true, this is real. So this is where, even though like people are actually getting, you know, videos and pictures and everything of Sasquatch, it's our discernment and personal experience that is the the weight in which we get to hold these things as truth. So the discernment is there, and if that comes through an ascended being, ascended master who's coming through and telling you some stuff, listen to everything. Listen to all points. We're here to listen to all points, and then to use the discernment.
Right. And that's where it comes into play, because you're absolutely right. But to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is what a lot of people just like, too woo-woo for me.
Yeah.
That discernment to say, hey, wait, this is legit. Like I said, this is something I would never have looked at, and it yielded a lot of information in return.
Yeah.
And then along with that is, think wag the dog and apply it to what's going on in the world today.
Totally. I think there's an interesting aspect of that controller narrative and consent and manipulation of emotion, because if there can be a manipulation of the emotion without actually doing a physical thing, but you're still getting the same outcome from the emotional vomiting that's coming out of people through whatever it is in the narrative that's emotionally challenging. And again, wag the dog. We know that has been used in the past in times where the technology wasn't as good, and now the technology is very good, and even what is being shown to us. So who knows what the technology is, that isn't being shown to us, and how they have to try to manipulate emotion these days, right? So that's interesting. It's like they get the same result without actually having to do harm necessarily, not the type that they're portraying. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it just goes back to, so that's happening today. The wag just is in the wag the dog scenario is in all of the trauma that's being foisted on the public with regards to conflicts in different parts of the world. It's the same people behind it. The same manipulators are behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And so while some are still emotionally pulled into it, what I'm seeing and hearing is that more people are recognizing it for what it is, that manipulation. And so we're growing. More is being exposed, and we're growing. And I really think that's why things have been allowed to play out this way, is so that we would, like you talked about earlier, getting us out of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
With the last events of the last 3 years. Who'd have thunk it?
I wouldn't. And it's funny because like I've devoted a lot of time, effort, energy, into recognizing all of the weirdness in this world, but I was thrown for a loop when all of that came through.
And it had horrible effects. Still having horrible effects.
Yeah.
But the alternative was all of us. If they were still in control, we'd still be in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd still be putting that stuff out. We'd still be locked down. We'd still be wearing masks. All that stuff would still be happening.
Mm.
They lost control.
They really did.
Yeah. We woke up.
And people, myself included, I was negatively affected by that that whole scenario too. Bodily autonomy is number one, and I wasn't going to let someone else dictate what I was going to put into my body as a supposed medicine, when I saw plenty of reasons why it shouldn't be used as a medicine and forced upon someone. And, I had to walk away from a lot in my professional career because of that. And I saw a lot of other people within my field who had to do the same thing. And it was, again, it's this free will, and we all had our own personal way in which we responded to what was presented to us. And unfortunately, a lot of people went against their better judgment and what they wanted to do and what was true to their heart. But fear out of losing their home and not being able to provide for their family and all of the things that come with when you don't have a paycheck, they did things that they didn't want to do, and that was against them. But the fear promoted going ahead and doing it for the betterment of, or of their family. And that sucks, that really sucks. But there was a lot of other people who said, nope, you can keep your money, you can refill that position, and I'm gone. I have now seen the light, and I now know that I can do something else, and I shall,
Yeah, I was fortunate not to be in that position of being forced into a situation, because I was like, no way.
Yeah.
Not happening. But I didn't have any outside pressure, and I have a monthly income through a pension, and so I was never in that position, and I know a lot of people were, and I understand that. It's just such a shame that people were put in that position to begin with, and they're still in a bind because they've manipulated our highest emotions. So you want to help other people, you want to help the public health aspect of it or whatever,
sure,
as a good person, and that's being deliberately used. And then I have a situation where one of my cousins almost died that first year working as a prison guard. In a miracle, he came back. And then his nephew, who's only 14, just had surgery for a brain aneurysm that came up all of a sudden. And he's doing well. This has happened within the last week. He's doing well. He's recovering well. But I'm sure because my cousin, this is like their brother and sister and nephew, that because of my cousin's experience, it almost died from it. Oh, we're going to go ahead and get all this taken care of. And then a 14-year-old boy almost dies.
Yeah.
And they don't know that. They're like, genetics?
Yeah.
It's just so there's still fallout from that. But again, I can't help but think we're getting ready to turn a corner here. And also that there's technologies that are going to be released, healing technologies that will help heal humanity that's been kept from us.
Yeah.
That are ready, that are just like ready for release. And certain things have to play out before we get to the point where that's public awareness. So, the crimes against humanity have just been off the charts with what's taken place here over the last couple hundred years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In the name of, medicine, in the name of psychiatry, in the name of education, in the name of all of the things that are, supposed to be pure with intent. And they've been incredibly muddied, and then they are creating minds out of that mud. So, but yeah, it's interesting because, the feeling that I have inside of me that is most apparent and most prevalent is that what is to come is going to be beautiful. And what is to come is going to be moving back into a more unified aspect of humanity with themselves, with a healing within, and then with a reconnection with the other beings who are here, and how we get to all participate in the reconstruction of this realm, because it is a special place. This is a special place, and we have you know, very possibly done this over and over again. I'll read I brought one of Kawani Lapsaritis's books, because in this one, it's got the letters that were written from Haloti to him, and Haloti says something about cities. Let me see if I can find it real quick. So this one,
as in human superpowers, or places where people live?
Places that people live. Okay, here we go. This is, I'll read this one, and then I should have marked them, but this is one of those. And again, it's from the Sasquatch People by Kawani Lapsaritis. Your world not same as our world, your time not same as our time, your space not same as our space. A thin cloth hang between their places that open and shut. There is no I or me, we are all one. Each one is part of the whole. What one does, all do. You may see us as Brother Crow or Brother Wolf. Listen to the stones and speak to the trees. And in one of the other letters, it's talked about how there is a great war to come, and that humans have built cities over and over. And here we go. This is from a being known as Pushoma, one of the Sasquatch. Chief of the Ancient Ones in Oklahoma, indicates this note that he asked Haloti to write that humanity has been in this juncture before. So Haloti wrote this for Pushoma. This what Pushoma tell to write. Our people come here before the time of Thropus. God send us here on ball of light. We build great city of stone on these mount. We are here to watch over what God create. Nothing is new in your people create. Many time humans make machines and city, then make war and destroy, then start over. So, and then we can kind of see that within the record. Cities are built upon cities, layered all the way up, and the lower you go, the farther down you go, the more advanced it is.
I think the other thing that comes to mind is the concept of worlds, and how many worlds there might have been, and our concept of time is all messed up.
Yeah.
So I think like the civilization I see has lasted for a very long time, up until it was destroyed. And then one of the first things I remember hearing before I started with my own waking up was a Hopi prophecy, or saying that we are living on the previous world.
Yeah.
And so the only thing I would add to that is I just think we're talking about incomprehensible periods of time where this has taken place, because the civilization that I see of the Moors lasted from ancient times to modern.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, how much time in between? Yeah, we're just all left with just fragments and ideas and guesses, and but I do understand about the higher consciousness of the Sasquatch. And when I first started learning about their capabilities, is it Ontario Sasquatch or Sasquatch Ontario?
Sasquatch Ontario, Sasquatch Ontario, and Mike Patterson.
Okay, so he was talking about like leaving a camera out and then checking the camera and there would be an image on it.
Yep. It's
So
happened to us too.
So they were able to just through their mind create an image without taking they didn't take a picture.
Nope.
It was all mental. They left an image on the film in the camera.
Yeah. Yeah. They can do it.
And then leaving, like, it wasn't glyphs, but like leaving little things to show something, hey, I got your message or something like that.
Yeah. The images on cameras is so their energetic field too, like when they get close to you, you feel it. It is the most powerful thing I've experienced is when they are literally closer to me, like on the other side of the tent, you know. It's intense, that energy field that's coming off of them. And however it is that they can do it, yeah, they can implant images onto a digital phone or on a camera, and when you look at those photos, like it ain't just of what the scenery or whatever is in front of the camera, you know, or even where you're at right there. It's different. It looks different. And there's I think Mike has shown a few different examples where there's like a grid pattern that's also coming through, and images have shown up like that in our research and in our camps. That's happened to us. They also they'll drain your batteries of your phone or your vehicle or your watch, you know. They'll drain the battery. You can have 100% on your phone, and you walk into a specific area, and if they want you to have 0%, then your phone shut off and you have 0%, and you can't turn your phone back on. It's not working, and you walk back into a different area, and now all of a sudden you've got 100%. So the energetic levels that they are working with, it's amazing, right? Like the I'm quite certain that they can teleport, you know, or bilocate. There's a bilocation aspect from here to another place in this physical realm, and then from here to another dimensional aspect. There's the telepath. There's the energetic healing. There is the manipulation of the phones and all of these ways that they're capable of. There's a lady in our group, her name's Arla, and she's in her 70s, and she had her first connection with the Sasquatch when she was 6 years old. And it's been a continuous connection, familial relationship with the Sasquatch people, and specifically the ones that are on her property in Oklahoma. And they have told her all the things that we can do, you guys used to be able to as well.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Those are our higher powers as well.
Yeah. When she asked him, you know, like, do you travel in an orb form? Because they do. And that has been seen inside camp. They will come in real close in an orb form. And it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It is spectacular to witness that. And I think that, you know, for our sensitivities, so because they're never going to present themselves in a way that is shocking to the system to the point where like we're not going to recover, because that's certainly possible, you know, like we never minds blown. So they're not doing that. But so it's like they're not just going to come and sit next to us at all those. Yes, they actually have in some cases, but they're not just going to just do it real quick and blow everyone's minds, but they will come through in an orb form, and we can develop that callus I guess, with that interaction with the multidimensional aspects. But he said too, he was like, you guys travel in orb form too. It's not just them that are doing this shape and this mode of transportation is happening by many, to include humans too.
Yeah, I mean, I know I personally have no doubt that I'm being communicated with from the other side. I don't know exactly who. I just know my ability is in my intuition. So I don't hear things, I don't see things, but I do know things or get in from, look at this, don't look at that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm a well-prepared vessel, but I don't see it as my work because something wants this information to come back out and is connected to the grids. And so whether it's guides or ascended masters or Sasquatch or whoever, there's something that's helping me somehow, synchronistically. I mean, for example, I haven't done one in a while, but I've have a lot of places people have suggested that I look into. Hey, take a look at this place or whatever. And invariably, when I sit down to do one of those, it's like there's a theme, but I don't plan a theme. Or weird synchronicities between information.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
It's the observer, right? Of the either the wave or the particle, like you're observing this, and so now like all the magic is popping out.
Yeah, so that's what I experience. That's the kind of magic I experience, is the synchronicities that come up. And it's really cool. So yeah, I mean, this is a magical place. This is a special place. And there's a reason all the vampires descended on.
Yeah.
On Earth to make it hell.
And it's it's tainted, but it's not taken over, like we're in a very good place right now to flip the coin. And I think it comes down to sharing, like I really think it comes down just to sharing each other, our own personal stories. Like here's my piece of the puzzle, and when we're open with that and we get to share this information, it's so special. It's like I don't think we would kind of be able to get past the obstacles we have had thrown at us if we didn't have like international community through silly things like Zoom or like just instantaneous communication. We don't have to rely on a pigeon.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, thank God. Like we do have some like pretty awesome tools, and they might be replacements for these natural abilities, of course, where once before maybe we could telepath and we had a Skype session with a John Dee type of scrying mirror. I don't know, but at least we have these things now to bring these puzzle pieces together from such far places. So it's awesome, and the magic is real, and you're figuring out so much about it, and the sharing that you do again it's a priceless commodity. It's a priceless like relic. It's a priceless piece that gets to live on, not just in a video, but in people's minds. Like it's opening up stuff, and I see that too with I want to be as vocal as I can with my experiences, and I'm doing that. I'm focusing on that a lot these days. Like within this last year, it's been 13 years of this kind of chapter, but really this last year is when I felt it was the right time to start the channel and to start documenting. I had already been doing that with Barb and her channel, but this was the year of focusing on my particular story, and I know, hopefully I get to bring a little bit of that too to people who get to hear my story. But I definitely see that with the elders in the community, who have been doing this for a while, and speaking out and being ridiculed too. Like the stuff that like Arla and Tom have had to endure within an area of study that's been so manipulated and so infiltrated, and the truth of these connections and who these beings are since, if we say 1967 with the Patterson Gimlin film coming out, and from 1967 until now, it hasn't been but like the last maybe 10 years that people have been giving the space for these for people to come forward with these knowings. People have known all of this stuff privately for a real long time, and the connections that people have with the Sasquatch on that private level, who knows what the numbers are. But those people who have been speaking out about their capabilities and who they are as a people, they've dealt with a lot in terms of those that don't want that information out, because it's like, once you get that information out, it ain't going back in, and once it's out, then we are 1,000 times steps closer to the goal of peace.
In our lifetimes.
Yeah, like
we can do this.
We really can. Yeah.
And the fact that the Sasquatch are on board is really exciting.
Yeah.
Because
they totally are.
They would not be making the connections that they're making if things were like they were 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Probably even 5 years. not too far in the past, because it's only, I mean, it seems like there's been an exponential acceleration.
Absolutely.
Probably at least, like we've been talking, probably at least since 2020. I don't know how many people I've talked to that was when they started to see. Before then, I mean, I've been awake for longer than that. And I've known some people that are older than I am that have been awake when it was even harder. That first wave, as Dolores Cannon would say, that first wave of volunteers had it the hardest. I consider myself in the second wave. And then the third wave would be like the crystals and the indigo children, that they've already got it.
Yeah.
They're already hardwired for it. I'm in the generation where I had to collect my codes as I was living life,
Yeah.
And then that first generation, many of whom would still be alive. So I'm 60, so 70s, 80s. Boy, did they have a rough time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh. But they are there. They were there. They came in. They weren't crushed. Because I've known a lot. I mean, I not necessarily Sasquatch experiencers, but people 20 years older than I am that had UFO experiences, and they were light workers a long time ago.
Yeah.
But they just couldn't talk about it.
Arla's grandmother, Arla is in her 70s. So when she was 6 years old on her grandmother's land, and where she had that first interaction with a juvenile Sasquatch, her grandmother had already had connection with the Sasquatch, and had for a long time. And she has a picture of her grandmother from the 40s, like doing the Sasquatch walk, before it was even in the consciousness of people. And so it's really cool to know that kind of quietly these first kind of generations of people who were coming back into the remembrance and the connections, they were doing it. And a lot of them had to go through a lot, and you've had to go through a lot, and I've had to go through a lot. And You know, it's all good though. It's all preparation. We're still here. We're still thriving, not just surviving, and really putting effort towards this new world. Like it can happen. And if that is something, you know, in the past where we see these civilizations that have just like up and gone, they're gone all of a sudden. Well, did they ascend to a higher dimensional aspect of this earth? Are they still connecting with us and communicating with us through crop circles? Are you know, are they looking at what's unfolding here and just waiting for others to pop in to where they're at? How many ways are there to experience this reality and this in this realm? Because I think there's many, and everybody's there's large populations within all of those folds. So, and then having everybody come back together in remembrance and building, that's, you know, you can't mess with that.
I've often wondered if there's going to be a moment in time where everybody wakes up and realizes that we're in a unified field. I read something along those lines in a book that was published by Ken Carey, and he was one of my guides along the way. He published 3 books. One was the Starseed Transmissions, one was The Return of the Bird Tribes, and one was The Third Millennium. And he talked about that in the Third Millennium. But he said it wasn't exactly channeling. It's more like he tuned into a frequency of beings that were communicating with him. That's pretty interesting stuff. It was part of my journey to read those books and get a lot from them. And then crop circles, that's another one. I mean, hoaxers doing that,
Not at all.
impossible.
Impossible, like literally impossible.
It's like
literally impossible.
You know, so and I think a lot of people realize that, probably a lot more than think it's a hoax.
Yeah, at this point, it's my favorite time of year is crop circle season.
It's like definitely communicating with us. You know, so there's a lot of really exciting things happening, and I appreciate the invitation to speak with you.
Yes, thank you so much.
You know, there's just you know, it's definitely a work in progress, but with all the synchronicities I've been experiencing on a regular basis, I can just, you know, it's only going to get better.
It really is. And I appreciate so much you taking the time to have this conversation and approaching these subjects with the grace and diligence that you do. It's so appreciated. And I hope to get you up in the forest soon to go camping and connect with the Sasquatch as well. So the invitation is open, and until we speak again, have a wonderful time out there in this realm, kicking ass for the working class.
Thank you, and you too. You're doing great. You're
Thank you.
very, very articulate and a very good spokesperson for all of the really neat experiences that you've been having to bring forward.
I appreciate it.
So you do
Thank you.
wonderfully. Thank you.
All right.
Till we
I'll
talk
see you
again.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't go. Stop.